Hello, Cubs fans, and welcome to a brand new edition of Cubs on Tap. I am Ron Luce, as always, joined by one of my many co-hosts, Mr. Tyler Edmonds, and we have a very special guest tonight. This episode is long been in the works. We're super excited about it, but we are here with Marquee Sports Network's very own Mr. Cole Wright. Cole, happy Thursday. How are you doing, sir?
I'm excellent. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. It's been a long time, like you said, but let's get this thing rolling, man. Ready to roll.
Absolutely. We're so pumped to have you on. And again, I mean, you and I have been going back and forth trying to get something locked down, and it's finally here. And I know we're super excited as well. So in our comment section already excited as well. Our boy Jeremiah here sharing the excitement with you joining us. So again, thank you for joining us, man. And we want to dive right in because I feel like there's a lot of people that are familiar with your work and have known you from being on television, but maybe don't know a whole lot about your upbringing, your kind of your roots as a Cubs fan. And that's some of the things that we want to dive into here with you. And you started your current, what we'll call it, your sports life. You played baseball growing up. Really good high school player in the Chicagoland area. You played collegiately. First you were at Middle Tennessee State, and then you ended up at NAIA Briarcliff, which shout out NAIA sports. I was an NAIA athlete myself. And Tyler, I think you were too, actually. Yep. Were you not?
Yep.
Look at that. NAIA boys all around.
There you go.
Where did your love of the game of baseball stem from? Like, what was that first core memory for you that really got you into the sport?
I feel like playing baseball in the neighborhood as kids. I mean, I grew up in Joliet. Originally, we moved, to Naperville and Aurora area when I was 12. But, growing up in Joliet, we played baseball. I mean, either it was wiffle ball, some form of hard ball, or rag ball. I don't know if it's tough to find the old school rag ball that that actually said rag ball on it and had like the little fake raised seams and everything. But we'd play with that. We'd play with pretty much whatever. And, then when I moved to Naperville, we used to play in a tennis court with a broomstick and a tennis ball. And we used to play burnout. If anyone could get it, out of the tennis court, you were doing it. And then once we got a little bit older and a little more advanced with our swings, it wasn't who could get it out of the tennis court. It was who could get it over the top of the next apartment building. So, I mean, we just played ball, and that's what we did. And I think it was always the competitive spirit. Everyone was always trying to hit it farther than the next cat or throw harder than the next dude or, just win the day in the neighborhood. And that's pretty much what it was. And when it got cold, we played football. And then when it turned into spring, we'd play baseball mixed in with basketball. I mean, everyone remembers back in the day, dribbling a basketball around in somebody's driveway, busting puddles of ice, you know what I'm saying? And then half the ball was wet and it was still cold out. So that's kind of just what it was back then.
Absolutely. Did you guys ever get creative with the tennis balls and the tennis courts and use an actual baseball bat every once in a while?
No, we never did. But okay. I remember one time we used to autograph the sticks, and we used to put grips on them and everything. Yeah. And I used to have every once in a while my temper would get the better of me. I remember one time striking out, turning around and whipping the bat against the fence. And it went straight through the fence, across the sidewalk to the second floor, and smashed a window. And we all took off running.
I was fixing to ask you how many windows you broke.
Yeah, we all took off running. And I mean, I think at that point I was maybe 8th grade. Yeah, 7th, to the summer between 7th and 8th grade. But they were cats that were sophomores and juniors in high school. They took off running too. We all scattered. And after I got to the house, I remembered, I'm like, oh man, like that was my bat. And I had my name is on that. Like, and not looking back, I'm like, it was just scribbles, exactly what it was. They wouldn't have been able to actually know whose name it was. But either way, I went back, confessed I had to pay for the window like an idiot. But I learned my lesson with that one. Either way.
Yeah. You can't beat those days. Those were it's like the old saying goes, man. You can't beat those childhood days of just playing ball with your boys, man. That's just nothing beats that.
No, it's as good as it gets, man. I mean, you remember, right field out or whatever it was, ghost runner. And I was saying, people ask like, why some kids have certain arm strength this day and age. It's like, well, when they play catch, you can tell the kids that play catch. That's what we did. We played catch. You used to walk around the neighborhood with your glove, just waiting for some. Oh man, is my boy home yet? I see his parents' car. Let me go knock, knock, knock. Like, hey, you want to play catch? All right, cool. And then another dude joins up, and then you're playing hot box. Trying to get a rundown going, and that's once again, that's just what it was.
Yeah,
100%. That's so fun.
Obviously you're an Illinois guy. What was it like for you starting out your broadcasting career in the likes of Texas and Louisiana?
I mean, it was different. My first job was, covering all the teams that were on the movie Friday Night Lights. I got there, it was, Midland High, Midland Lee, Odessa High, Odessa Permian. I mean, it was, San Angelo Central. That was the team that I covered. Unfortunately, they were on the lower rungs of those squads, and not to take anything away from them. I mean, they had a lot of talented players, but some of the better teams were a little bit further away, and we would travel to those squads, and we would cover a lot of high school teams. But 6-man football, I never saw that. I mean, coming from Chicagoland, I mean, there's even the small schools play regular football.
Good old 11 on 11.
Not 6-man. Yeah, exactly. And so it was crazy to see it like that. And there was a little bit of culture shock when I first got there. I mean, I say culture shock. It was just a different place. Having gone to school in different places. I was cool with wherever my feet were at, and I feel like it was all part of the development. And I would do it all over again. Like some people would think like, oh, I couldn't wait to get out of there. I wanted to get out of there once I got there, only so I could further my career. But if I could do it all over again, like I feel like there were so many lessons learned. And it sounds so cliche, but you can make those mistakes at a lower level. You don't have to worry about it as many eyes being on you, and you can really figure things out because you get so much more time as opposed to when you're in school.
100%. I was gonna say it feels like one of those things, and I'm sure it's something you can relate to, right? With like a guy like Joe Madden, who always used to say it, right? He's like, I've tried every weird thing you can try at the minor league level where nobody sees it. I know what's going to work and not work in the majors when once he got there as a manager. It was the same thing goes for broadcasting. It's, hey, you've tried all the different ideas. Oh, this didn't really go that well. Hey, that was a really good idea. We're going to recycle that one for later and try to bring it back. And again, you get your work in when you're able to make those mistakes at those lower levels. But you weren't at those lower levels forever, obviously. And this is where I first became a fan of yours, was once you got to the NFL Network. And you were synonymous for me, like with NFL Network. It was like, welcome to NFL Network, everyone. I'm on Cole Wright. And I was like, oh, all right, NFL Total Access is on. Like that's like a growing up memory for me, and seeing you on NFL Network. What were some of your, what was that like for you? Because obviously you played the sport of baseball. You were a first baseman, what was that like transitioning? You mentioned you guys played a lot of football growing up, but what was that like going from the sport you love and you played with baseball to more of just a football centric focus as a broadcaster?
I feel like for me, making that switch is, at least the one thing for me was, sometimes I have to ask genuine questions. When I'd be sitting next to MJD or Mike Robinson, I would ask those cats questions because I literally had a question, because I didn't really, I played football as an 8th grader and freshman in high school, and we played in the backyard. You played tackle football, and, cats get broken collarbones and whatnot, but I feel like you don't really go over the rules like that, and unless you're a football junkie. And I didn't really dig my teeth into football like that until, the second half of my life. Once I got to college, 'cause I was playing college baseball, always all consumed by college baseball. And then I wasn't a college football guy. I mean, if you grow up in the Chicagoland area, unless you have serious ties to University of Illinois or University of Iowa football, chances are on Saturdays, if you're playing baseball, you have other things that are, a little bit higher on the agenda. So, once I got to Texas, that's when I really started digging in, after I got that first job. But I'd say when I was in college, I'd always watch NFL. Obviously, we had Sunday Ticket, and it was always an NFL thing, but I always worked on Saturdays during the off season in college. You still had to make money. You had to get your workouts in, and Saturdays, that's what we were geared towards. I would work a double, at the restaurant I worked at, and then I'd go home and get a workout in, and then Sundays we'd sit around and watch football all day. So making the transition for me was I never wanted to overstep my bounds because obviously not being a football guy, I was going to ask questions and put my analyst in the best position to succeed. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to ask questions that I feel like someone at home would have that exact same question. As the difference in between football and baseball for me is not saying I'm a baseball genius by any stretch of the imagination, but I feel like I can ask the questions that I want the answers to because 80% of the time I'll know a good bit of that answer, but I don't have the credentials to go out there and say that answer because then I'll be like, well, who's this guy? He didn't, he's never seen a strike or never thrown a strike in the league, which is 100% true. And that's why I would never, no matter if it's NFL or baseball or whatever sport it may be, but obviously that's the emphasis for me is football and baseball. I would never go out there and act like I know more than the guy I'm sitting next to. I mean, even if they make a mistake, I'm going to find a way to turn it around because that's all it is a slip of the tongue because they've forgotten more than I've ever known about it. Like if you make it to the show, that means you are pretty good. You know an awful lot about the game, especially if you've chosen to go and pursue a career in media afterwards. So I always just try to get the best out of everybody, whether it's football, baseball, tiddlywinks, golf, or whatever it is, man. Just bring the best out of it. Be informative and have fun.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So while with NFL Network, you were also with Sportsnet LA covering the Dodgers. What was that like? Like what were some of your favorite memories doing that? And what were some of your thoughts just about the Dodgers during that time?
I mean, they were a squad then, and they're a squad now. I have a lot of love and admiration for that squad. But the one thing, as far as my baseball fandom goes, like I've always told everybody that I know, I love the Cubs, and always have, always will. I have pictures in my Cubs hat, my pops and I, and my mom at the Sears Tower. Yeah, I'm in a Cubs hat in the photo booth. My mom's got Sally, Jesse, Raphael red glasses on. My pop's got a big Fu Manchu mustache, and I'm wearing a Cubs hat, and that's what I've always been. That's what I always will be. And sometimes, it's they say you're not supposed to root in the press box, but sometimes that's hard. It's hard. Mm-hmm. It's hard not to when you've grown up cheering for that team, and you realize how blessed and lucky you are to be in the position that that I am. I never take that for granted. So that's one thing that I feel like I never try to be lost on, is that I love the Cubs and I really like the Dodgers for what they were able to do for me, keeping me in the game of baseball, which allowed me to get the job with the team that I love. Because if it weren't for Jerry Harrison Jr., I grew up with Jerry and Justin and Scott in Naperville, playing baseball. They played at Naperville North. Obviously, I played at Waubonsie Valley, and Jerry's the one that got me the job. And at first they said, "Oh, well, he's a football guy. He works at NFL Network." And Jerry's like, "Nah, I grew up with this dude. He's a baseball guy that works at the NFL Network." So they gave me the shot, in which that essentially allowed me to get the job working for the Cubs. And I'm forever grateful for that. And I also appreciate the fact that that's when my family, meaning my wife and my daughter, when they really fell in love with baseball, because we were able to go to so many games, and this is even before I worked for them. We were able to go to Dodgers games. It was closer than going to Angels games, and you could go on StubHub right before first pitch and get tickets for $28. It's the craziest thing sometimes how it works, or whatever, or Vivid Seats, or whatever the ticket outlet may be. You could sometimes just go on there and pop and get tickets, and that's what we would do. So there were summers sometimes where we'd go, and we'd never had season tickets, but we go to 35, 40 games. Just sometimes randomly. I just look and be like, oh, okay, they're playing whoever, let's go. And one of the funniest things is at a certain point in time, my daughter realized, like, we always go to Dodgers and Cubs games. And one day she looked at me, she said, "Dad, like like, you're not cheering for the Dodgers. Like, I'm like, of course not. I looked at her and like I almost spoke to her like a grown man when she was like 7 years old. I said, "Of course not." I'm like, "Do you think I'd ever cheer against my team?" I'm like, "Absolutely not." And it's still funny to me, but she realized, okay, like my dad really likes this team, but this is his squad. He's going to be rooting for them. And I was at all the games in the NLCS. Back in 2016, like me and two of my college teammates. One of my college teammates who was living in Colorado at the time, and one of my former college teammates who owns a brewery in Los Gatos with Kevin Youkilis. Like we went to all these games, man, and we were dialed in. I wore the same shirt the entire time, the same hat the entire time. I washed them, obviously. So some people took their superstitions to that next level, I'm sure, and did not wash their gear. You didn't wash it?
Well, I would only wear the T-shirt. Like I was just at home, and it was I would just watch the games at my house. So the T-shirt would go on for the game. Okay. If they won, it came off gently. We'd spray it a little bit if you had to, so it doesn't smell bad. Just lay it out, ready for the next game. If they lose, it's getting bunched up and it's thrown in the laundry.
I feel like I was going to the games. Like going to the games, and like knowing the parking scheme of where I was parking at, walking at the parking lot at Chavez Ravine. Like, I don't know if you really want to just take it off and gently spray it, because then it would probably spray like Febreze on top of a smelly shirt. That's exactly what it would smell like.
I'll be honest. I did the same exact thing with a pair of Cub socks I had. If they lost, I washed them. If not, I'm not touching them. I did not touch them. Ooh. I did that, and I know, bad, but I had to do it. I had to do it. That, and I had a hat. I had this hat that I just could not. It was with me. Even if I went to work, I had to leave it in the truck. I just had to.
I could see the hat, but socks.
Yeah, I know.
Those can get real crispy.
Yeah. They can get real crispy.
Real quick.
Yeah.
You don't re-wear socks. So I applaud you for that one. I applaud you. Whatever it takes.
Do it. Yeah.
Whatever it takes.
Well, so far, Cole, throughout this interaction, our comment section's going absolutely ballistic. In fact, one of somebody that you see on a regular basis here, and our good friend of the program, Mr. Justin Steele, is hanging out in the comment section as well with us.
There he is.
In this episode. But a good question came from two guys at the exact same time. Loyal friend of ours, Mr. Scott from Iowa. He said, "Any good Vin Scully stories?" Everybody wants to know any good Vin stories from your time in LA.
I don't have any. I never got to. Unfortunately, I never got to meet Vin Scully. I feel like, I never wanted to be that guy who was always trying to go up there and say, "Hey, let's go see Vin Scully." And I know everybody said that when you would go into the press box that he was the most welcoming and gracious person ever. But I just never wanted to be. I didn't want to be that guy. I'm like, I figured if he's down, by the field, or if he was by the studio for whatever reason, then maybe I would, have an interaction. But my interactions were limited with the guys who were down there, and more so with Tommy Lasorda, and which was when I worked in Baton Rouge. Obviously, back then, Paul Maneri was the head coach, national championship winning head coach. He used to coach at Notre Dame as well as Air Force Academy. He was really close with Tommy Lasorda, and his dad was close with Mike Piazza, and Mike Piazza's dad. They're from South Florida. So when Tommy Lasorda came to town in Baton Rouge, Coach Maneri, he set it up because he recruited some guys I played with at Notre Dame in the summertime. Mark Lipinskis I played with at Naperville Central in summer league. He went to Notre Dame. So Coach Maneri realized that, okay, this guy, he played ball at a certain level. So he always, I feel like, went above and beyond for me, which I was, always grateful for. And so when Tommy Lasorda came to Baton Rouge, every other station, they had a live shot with him on Friday night. But on Saturday, Coach Maneri set it up to where I was able to sit down in the Lawton room, or not. I apologize. Lawton room is the trophy room in Tiger Stadium. Mm-hmm. The trophy room I was in, it was in the old Alex Box Stadium before they built the new Tiger Stadium there in Baton Rouge. But we sat in there, and I interviewed Tommy Lasorda for an hour and 36 minutes, and that was back in like 2008. So
that's awesome.
We talked about everything under the sun. So for me, 10, 13 years down the road, to be sitting right next to him essentially during games. And one day I'm sitting right next to Tommy Lasorda, probably, I don't know, 12 feet away. And he's yelling at Manny Machado, and Machado! Manny Machado is acting like he doesn't hear him. You know that he heard him, and he's not answering him back. So then he kind of just sits there, and then he said, "Hey, come here." So I get up and I go over, and like, hey, let's go, Tommy. What? How you doing? What's going on? And he asked me a thing or two about Manny Machado, and then when he gets done with the conversation, he's "Hey, you want one of these chicken fingers?" in front of a packed house at Dodger Stadium, in the front row, right next to the home on deck circle. And I'm like, "Oh, thank you, Tommy. I appreciate it, but thanks. But no thanks." And I went to sit down, and about 2 steps into my walk back to my seat, I thought, "Man, you should have really took one of those chicken fingers and like dipped it right in the barbecue sauce in front of everybody." And I mean, imagine people like, how is he getting Tommy's chicken fingers like that? Like, I mean, but still, I feel like just the interaction was pretty neat. I mean, and even to remind him about the interview, I feel like at that point he didn't remember the interview that we did, but he still remembered the interaction from day to day at a certain point, when he would see you at the ballpark. So, being able to interact with a guy like that, no matter what team he was the skipper for, no matter what team he would have been associated with at that point in time, that's unbelievable. Just to be able to come in contact with legends like that is awesome. Pretty cool.
100%. And one of our commenters here says they sat 2 rows behind Tommy at Wrigley in the 90s, and they said, "Nicest guy," shook everyone's hand. Darren says that's the coolest never met Vin Scully story ever.
Yeah, I mean, what guy I could have been like, "Oh yeah," like every time I was around him, he was great. And it could have been complete, a complete farce. So no, I never met him. I wish I did. I feel like it's something that I wish I would have done. And I mean, obviously, you can never get that back. So,
sure.
Either way,
absolutely. Hey, and we'll get back on the script too here, but I got to know, because you've already started to hint at it, so we got to get into it here. What was it like receiving the call about Marquee Sports Network when the time came?
I mean, unbelievable. Like I still feel like a kid in a candy store, fellas. Like the fact that I get to. I talked to my dad. Today he messaged me. He's like, hey man, like, and his messages to me sound like his voice. And he's, and it's like, hey man, like, when you calling games this spring? And I was like, so I told him to get the days about, the games I'm going to be calling. And he's like, I was just looking because it starts tomorrow. No Cubs 360 today. And because we had no Cubs 360 today, a travel day, getting ready obviously for the season to get underway. But when getting the call from them it was special because like I said, my dad tells me, he's like, every Cubs game starts and ends with you, and not to make anything about me, but I know I have an obligation. There's a whole generation of Cubs fans, and this is our 5th season now on Marquee Sports Network. I mean, there's kids now who are 15 years old who, when they started watching Cubs games when they were 10, they started watching our pregame and postgame, and that's what they're used to. And hopefully I get Cubs games off the runway the right way, and I land the plane as it needs to be every single night, because I take pride in being there and making sure that things are taken care of the way that they need to be, because like I said, I'm a Cubs fan. I grew up a Cubs fan. That's what I'll always be. The day after the Cubs won the World Series, I went and got a bunch of shirts right outside of Venice, California, because I was obviously living on the West Coast, because I knew that I'd gotten stuff screen printed at places in Venice before, and it was sometimes it'd be like $9 to screen print something on a shirt that you would bring in. I brought these shirts in, dropped them off. I came back and everything I asked for was printed on them, and they told me the price tag, and it was literally like $220 for like 6 shirts. And I was thinking in my head, like, okay, it's going to be like, $10, whatever. Yeah, I'll be fine. And they just I was so upset, but not upset I was like, you know what? I'm like, this really sucks, 1,000%.
Yeah.
But the Cubs just won the World Series last night, so you know what? Who cares?
Yeah.
I was like, that was the most, the saltiest. Yet, I just took it, all in stride, man. Like it was pretty funny.
I still remember the night that they won the World Series. My mom and I were up until like 3:30 in the morning online shopping for all the shirts and the hats and all that crazy stuff. Because both my parents, my dad actually here in the comment section tonight too. And I know my mom's watching, but she's too terrified to comment, and she'll admit that. Diehard Cubs fan. So
and you said Justin Steele in the comments, and he looked real slick at that live batting practice yesterday. That the slide piece.
yeah,
let me let you know. It was looking good. Jay Steele tipping the cap, man. He had one of the sickest Cubs hats I've ever seen, and we still couldn't get to the bottom of what exact Cubs hat it was in his locker at spring training. It's fantastic.
Ooh, that sounds like a mystery case that we need to get to the bottom to here.
It's sweet. It's I mean, the red seems a little more electric, and it's outlined with like it's a bold blue, but it's a different blue than the actual Cubs hat.
Interesting.
It's pretty sweet.
It sounds like we're gonna have to get him back on. We're gonna have to interrogate him. We're gonna have to figure out where that came from.
Man. Let us know.
Yeah. If you're still watching, Justin, please drop that in the comments. We're dying to know now of what that is, man, and what that hat is.
And if Justin is watching, have him ask Dansby to ask his missus, because I was on my flight home last night with Mallory Swanson. I saw her get out. I didn't say anything. I saw her just at luggage. But there was a dude that sat the row behind me, like 3 seats over, and he coughed and sneezed over 400 times.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, no.
Everybody on the plane was like, what is wrong with this dude?
Yeah.
It was outrageous, man. It was outrageous.
Wow.
We got to play a big old game of telephone with Justin.
Yeah.
Eventually, Justin's just going to be the telephone guy for Cubs on Tap, and
exactly.
Justin.
Exactly.
But what kind of a piggyback off of the marquee question here for you, Cole? What has been the most rewarding part about being back in your home city?
Like I said, I feel like just being able to be the steward of Cubs baseball, man. You know, just being like, it's like I said, not to look at it selfishly or anything, but it's a big responsibility. You know, it's Chicago Cubs baseball, and not to take anything away from the other 29 teams in the league, but Cubs baseball, as we all know, is pretty special. And we all love it for a reason. I mean, win, lose, or draw, we're in it to win it. So, you know, that to me is pretty big. And, you know, doing our Icons of the Ivy show, I mean, that was as good as it gets. You know, being able to sit with Ryan Sandberg, Fergie Jenkins, Billy Williams, Andre Dawson, Lee Smith, unbelievable. I mean, I have a picture, like, and it was, I told, you know, some people at work, I'm like, hey, look, we need to get a picture of that, and then run to CVS and get it printed out so they can autograph it. And you know, I have that picture autographed in my office at home, and I was able to give my dad one as well. And I mean, just to be able to sit down with those guys and talk baseball for 3.5 hours. I mean, I could have done it for 10.5 hours if they would have let me, but I mean, it was pretty fun. So I mean, that's a point of pride for sure.
That's incredible, man.
For sure. Well, like you said, it's obvious you're a Cubs fan. You've been a Cubs fan your whole life. Who was your favorite player for the Cubs growing up?
When he hit it over a fence, he hit it over a True Link fence. Number 8, Andre Dawson, man. Come on. I mean, that's my guy. I mean, anytime he's around and I get to talk baseball with him, if you can squeeze just a few words out of him, I mean, especially off of a camera, it's fantastic, because he's a man of very few words, but I mean, it's always great just to be around him and hear anything he has to say. And especially when, like, the few rare times when he is around and he comes up and says hello to me first, I'm like, oh, Andre Dawson just came over and said what's up to me. That's how I kind of have to always. That's how I always feel inside, because that's. I mean, if you're not, I feel like, man, you're kind of doing the wrong thing, because that's how I always feel about the game. That's how I always feel about when I see these guys. Like when I talk baseball with Billy Williams, I'm like, this is one of the greatest living baseball players there is. And when you can talk about a pitch sequence or a guy's last at bat, that's unbelievable, man. And you know, it's never lost on me. And I don't think that it's anything I don't ever take lightly.
Yeah, I think honestly, I think people forget. Like I was born in '90, but I'll go back and look at other other
Young
seasons.
I was sitting in the principal's office in
Well,
1990.
Man, like I'll go down Raven season and like look at that MVP race and just all the different like seasons so many players had. It's like, good God, like just him and Smith and Gwynn and Eric Davis and all them. I'm like, dude, that just it was like a golden year of just
it was
so much awesome performances that year, man.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's like I said, like Andre Dawson, that's my guy. The first number I ever got to pick on my own, were like, what number do you want? Like, usually just get whatever number. And I was always a big kid, so I always get like 19. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
when you're 7 and 8 and whatever. But when I got to pick, number 8 was the first number I got to pick, and it eventually turned into number 24, which that's the number. That's my favorite number of all time. So, but either way, number 8, Andre Dawson, that's my guy.
Was there, this one's a little off script for you, but I know you played first base. Was there a certain first baseman that you idolized in your time growing up that you tried to maybe model your game around?
It's crazy, man, because obviously he played on the other side of town. Big hurt. I mean, that's the age. That's the age that I am. And even though I'm a Cubs fan through and through, I'm also a baseball fan. I appreciate the game, and I always have. Not only have I watched Ken Burns baseball more times than I'd like to admit, I also have the book, the hardback book that I got. I think in the year the movie came out, and I think I got it for my 8th grade graduation, and I still have it. So, that's one thing. I mean, maybe I'm a baseball nerd to some extent, but that's what it's all about for me is being able to go back and appreciate that history. You said born in 1990. It's like, man, that seems like that was a long time ago, but it wasn't that long ago. But I just try to always appreciate history. And just FYI, like my daughter's just getting in the car, but we're still good. We're still good to go. Yeah, no doubt.
My dad chimed in. His were also 8 was one of his numbers when he played baseball, but his was for Mr. Randy Hundley. He was a catcher growing up.
Really? She says, "Hey, just got done with catching lessons. How'd catching lessons go? Good. Back. You go. Still shut it. We're good."
My dad, with a quick follow up to that, who's your favorite Cubs first baseman?
Mark Grace. I mean, who wish they weren't left-handed, but I mean, Mark Grace is my guy, and plus Mark Grace. I mean, working with Mark Grace is fantastic. I mean, it doesn't get a whole bunch better than Mark Grace. He's one of the funnest and nicest dudes you really ever want to meet. So I mean, and a lot more relaxed than a lot of people would guess. I mean, he's a pretty chill cat.
Yeah. That's awesome. My mom's favorite player was
really
Mark. Yeah, she loved Mark Grace. I can stare at him from over here. My mom was an autograph hawk in her youth when she had season tickets, and there's quite a few baseballs over there with Mark and Ryan and all those guys' autographs all over them here down in our basement. So
nice.
Yeah, she's a big Mark fan as well.
And the only Cubs autograph ball that I have is an Ernie Banks autograph ball that my dad got when he went out to dinner with Ernie Banks back in the day, and it's signed to me, my brother, and my sister, and it says, like, to all 3 of us, Harmony, Ernie Banks. And
awesome.
I still have it. It's the only autograph ball from any Cub that I have, the only autograph ball I have, period. But I mean, to have an Ernie Banks autograph ball, I just sometimes, not sometimes, I all the time wish that Ernie was still around when Marquee opened up and we were there. And I wish I would have been able to meet him and talk baseball with him in that capacity, like I do with Billy, like I do with Fergie. Just seeing Fergie the other day and sitting there and talking to it was Fergie, Sut, and myself, and just being just part of that triangle right there was. Like I said, it's the 12-year-old version of me is like, this is unbelievable. So it never gets old.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Go ahead, Tyler. I've been talking too much.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. You're good. So let's think, what do we got? How much? So like you talked about doing like your pre and post game shows, like doing all the work with that. How much actual live baseball do you get to take in during the season? Like, are there like, do you get chances like throughout the game and stuff? Are you constantly working on that pre and post show type stuff, or like do you get chances to do that?
We walk across as soon as I get done with post game or pre game rather. I walk straight across, and I'll watch the first few innings from the ballpark. We'll go get something to eat, and then we'll head back over, and we'll do like the hit in the 6th or 7th inning, whenever they want us to go out there and do the hit for the wagering, and but we're always across, whether it's
Awesome.
it's Cliff and I or Joe Girardi and I, we're always over there. Dex. I mean, you walk over there with Dex, it's like you walked over with the Beatles in 1971.
Yeah.
I mean, that cat gets mobbed. So, but yeah, we watch a lot of ball. That's a
Awesome.
good thing, and that's one of the things about Marquee is that I don't think there's any other team in baseball that has their network that close to the ballpark, and we have that, like literally walking distance, a sand wedge, like from my office to the gate that I walk in to Wrigley Field. It's bananas.
Awesome.
That is it really is such a unique experience. And speaking of the Cubs, let's talk a little current day Cubs baseball. You were just in Arizona, so I mean, you've gotten the best upfront look at most of these guys rolling into spring here. But for how much you're able to be brutally honest, what's your take on the Bellinger situation? And do you think the Cubs at the end of the day need number 24 back in this lineup?
I think there's 30 teams in Major League Baseball, and if you look at the fact that only 9 dudes hit over 300 last year, I think every team in baseball needs a player like that. I mean, who wouldn't want to acquire his services right now?
Yeah.
I feel like all he would do is make the team better. I feel like he was a fantastic fit. I feel like time right now is not necessarily of the essence, but if I'm not speaking for Cody Bellinger, I'm not speaking for anybody, but if I were him, I want to play ball.
Mm-hmm.
What do? You play baseball. That's your job. What do you want to do right now? You want to be with the team that you can win games with, and I feel like that's a scenario for him and the Chicago Cubs that is a perfect fit. I mean, if I were Cody Bellinger, I would want to be playing right now. I want green grass under my feet, and I would want the least amount of time getting familiar with my surroundings. And where would that be the easiest to do? With the Chicago Cubs. And the numbers that he put up last year, I don't think they're a fluke. And I know I'm biased because I did cover the dude for 2 seasons, and one of those seasons was an MVP campaign. But what I've seen him do firsthand, in different uniforms, tell me that he's a pretty special player. I mean, he has a rare combination of power, speed, the ability, to hit when down in the count, and just do a lot of things really well. And he's one of the nicest dudes that there is. I know it when you're a nice guy and when you play the game the right way, it makes it that much easier for you to root for somebody. But that's really what it is with him, man. And would I love to see Cody Bellinger on the 2024 installment of the Cubs? Absolutely. Would it suck to watch him play somewhere else? 100%. Let's hope we don't have to cross that bridge. I mean, let's hope that within the next few days that we're talking about, the excitement that he's going to bring, to the ball club in 2024. I mean, it's as we're recording this right now, it's the 22nd. I mean, it would be perfect. The 24th would be a perfect day to sign Cody Bellinger. It's his number. It'd be the day on the Gregorian calendar. It's my favorite. Yeah. It's my favorite number. It makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, it's got me getting so riled up. I'm not even able to complete half the words. I'm running out of air when I'm talking. I said the Gregorian calendar. That's what I meant to say.
I'll be honest with you, Cole. I was holding out hope because we earlier this season were scheduled to do a show on a Tuesday night in the evening after working hours, And that was the night that the Shota report came out. So we were the first Cubs show that got to talk about it, like as soon as it came out.
Yeah.
I'd be lying to you if I wasn't hoping that at 5:00 today, Bellinger was signed by the Cubs, and we could be talking about it right here with you.
If you guys have noticed in Twitter or X land, whatever you want to call it today, like just before we hopped on, there is a
somebody named Lisa.
Let's
somebody
go.
Named Lisa.
Hashtag let's go, Lisa. Apparently, Lisa knows something that nobody else knows about Cody. Supposedly, he's about to sign with Chicago, or has signed, or whatever. Nobody knows who Lisa is. Lisa may be just some made up whatever, but right now, let's go, Lisa. Let's hope Lisa's right.
Hey, we need a Joe at Obvious Shirts. Let's go Lisa shirts. If you see those walking around the north side downtown, where in Elk Grove Village, let's go Lisa. If that's what it takes to get number 24 back, let's go.
Whatever it takes.
I mean, but there's a lot of cats out there, and there's a quartet, obviously, of Scott Boras clients right now that are still waiting to hit the streets. I mean, I know those guys want to be playing. I know they're probably working out and getting ready, but there's nothing like being in camp with the boys and making sure that everything is right and ready to go for the upcoming season. So, whether you're Matt Chapman or Cody Bellinger or Blake Snell or Jordan Montgomery, I mean, I'm sure all four of those dudes really want to find a home right now.
Yeah. Well, I know spring training first game tomorrow, but I know you've been watching, you've been looking at everything. Who takes the biggest step forward in your opinion from 2023 based on what you've seen so far, or maybe is it too early to tell?
I think a guy, I don't know necessarily if he will. This is who I hope, because I think he has a lot of promise. But I love Alexander Canario. I mean, the guy's got tons of pop. I mean, he could be that fourth, that fifth outfielder, depending on how the lineup looks once the season rolls around. It just really all depends on who's going to start the season where. Mm-hmm. But I think Alexander Canario, he can provide enough convincing at bats in 32 spring training games. I don't know how many he's going to play. 27 of which, by the way, are on Marquee Sports Network. So be sure to check him out.
Incredible plug.
Yep.
But I think that he can take the biggest step forward. I mean, he's a dude, man. When it comes to his pop, he has it. Like you see him. Like I feel like if you've never seen a guy in your life, and if he walked to the ball field, you'd be like, oh, he can play. There's some dudes that just look like, oh, he can ball.
Yeah.
You just know it. And I think that's him. And I think his upside, we saw it 2 years ago. He had more home runs than anybody in the entire organization. He had 37 pumps, and then obviously got hurt, went down and played in the Winter League. So last year, injury, that was a thing as well. So if he can stay healthy, that's the guy. Julian Merriweather too. In live BP the other day, man, he was throwing absolute pellets, and he was throwing that slider, but he was trying to locate that fastball, and that's what I love, man. If I'm Julian Merriweather, my whole thought process, and maybe it's just the old school dude in me, but when you throw 100, 101, I'm thinking, here it is. You want some of this? Come and get some of this. I'm not trying to trick you at all. I'm trying to challenge you and put it at different quadrants of that box. Yeah. And I feel like if he can do that this year, then watch out, man, because he will be a surefire problem.
For sure. And speaking of Merriweather real quick, it's still crazy to think that they got that guy basically, wasn't it off of waivers?
I believe so.
It just feels like a steal because that guy has just electric stuff.
Daniel Palencia too, man. He was out there throwing bullets already, hitting triple digits, man. So, I mean, like I talked to Craig about it just yesterday, just talking about velocity. It's not everything, but it helps. Yeah. And it's good to see. And he said he's encouraged by the velocity. Luke Little was 95 and 98 during live BP yesterday. I mean, he was out there, and I'm a Luke Little fan. I mean, that guy, man, he's as big as a house. And, if he's going to fill up that strike zone, and he's halfway there, as big as he is when he's throwing strikes. So we're going to see there's a lot of guys with a lot of upside. So I'm encouraged.
I was going to say, I just saw with Canario too. I think I just saw him take Hendricks deep today, actually, in some live BP. I think he took Mr. Kyle Hendricks deep.
You like to see it, but you don't like to see that. But either way, Kyle Hendricks, he'll figure it out as he always does.
Yeah.
But you like to see Canario getting after. Like, you don't like seeing Patrick Wisdom go bridge off of Shota, but you know what it was, because then it gives him a chance to maybe work out a few kinks. Maybe not as deliberate with some of the pitch deliveries and location and selection. And that's what spring training's for. I mean,
100%.
hitters are going to win some battles, pitchers are going to win maybe a lot more. And that's going to carry over into the first few weeks of the season, hopefully.
Sure.
100%. Which prospect, Cole, do you think you'll be talking about the most on Marquee Sports Network this season?
Is PCA still a prospect or no? It just depends on where he breaks camp at and what his designation. I think either him or Ben Brown. Right? Ben Brown, injury derailed him, but Ben Brown's a big kid, man, and he's got a live arm, a live whippy arm, man, and he can get after it. So, I think that those two guys, and maybe Cade Horton, I mean, I feel like Cade's got really good stuff. I mean, he's got that wipeout stuff, and I know he's one of those blue chip players that when teams are calling and asking about certain things, asking Jed and Carter about, okay, what about this guy? It's always hands off with Cade Horton. And for good reason. We've seen some of his stuff, very explosive as well. So, if I had to put my bucks on one dude, though, it's I like Ben Brown a lot. And like I said, Luke Little, I'm a fan of. I don't know if he's necessarily a prospect. We saw him at the end of last season, but I like big cats that throw hard.
Yeah,
I mean, there's not all, but I mean, I like guys that go out there and they'll challenge you. I mean, there is some pitching element to it, obviously, but when you can locate velocity, there's nothing better than a well-placed fastball. You can ask a whole bunch of Hall of Famers. If you see him at Wrigley, if you're walking around, go up and ask him.
Definitely. For sure. Definitely.
So, all things considered, I know we talked about, is Bellick getting re-signed? Is he not? All that. Let's say the Cubs are done making moves this offseason, like as of today. Why should fans be convinced this team can be better in 2024 than they were last season?
Well, I think you have to look around the division and see who's gotten better and how do you win ball games. And I think you look at all the close games last year that, the one-run games that the Cubs lost. I think that, not taking anything away from Rossi, I love David Ross, man. If anyone's watching that knows how to get in touch with Rossi, that they've spoken with him, tell Rossi, love him, tip of the cap. I think that when you see a guy like Craig Counsell and his baseball acumen is as such, sometimes those one-run games, those closer ball games get eliminated. It's not anything that's done necessarily in the ninth inning or the seventh inning. Sometimes it's things that are done in the first or the third inning. And I think that David Ross is going to get other opportunities. There's no doubt about that. Sure, yeah. However, I think that with Craig Counsell, he just brings that extra uptick in the ability to win games from a managerial position. And not to say that they couldn't have in years past. I just think that that's the one thing, and that's one of the reasons why he's the guy who makes all the decisions now, and he's compensated as he is this season. And not to dig in anybody's pockets, but clearly Craig Counsell is a top flight skipper. If not, he would not be setting the precedent for other managers to come when it's time for them to go to the table and negotiate their next contract. So I feel like Craig Counsell is going to be one of the things that puts this team over the edge and makes them better than what they were a season ago. And like we talked about, not necessarily all the parts are done yet, and who knows if they've all come into place, because there's still a whole bunch of spring training games to be played, and then we'll see, because camp's still open, guys can still report. So
sure,
I think everything's gonna fall into place.
Yeah, that's certainly the hope. And I mean, knowing that Craig is going to probably have a big impact on this team, one thing that Craig Counsell is going to have to consider potentially, Cole, and it's something that we've talked about as a show throughout the course of the offseason. We've asked a few of our guests already as well. What are your thoughts on a potential 6-man rotation for the Cubs this season?
I mean, if I don't see it necessarily happening, but maybe it will. I feel like Shota's a dog like that. I feel like if he had to pitch, I mean, you think about guys that are elite college pitchers. I mean, it's essentially them being on like a 6-day rotation, kind of.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're a Friday starter, that's in the SEC, that's what it is. Like, so Paul Skeens is. I mean, we're probably going to see Paul Skeens on Pittsburgh by June. I mean, that cat's going to be out there throwing crack Tic Tacs, in the Pittsburgh heat, and it's going to be a problem. So I think that those guys make that transition, and I think that Shota will. I'm not necessarily speaking for Craig Counsell or for Tommy Hotovy or for anybody in that matter, but I just think that maybe to start the season, that's where they'll go, just to kind of get things off the runway. But I feel like they'll clearly focus in as the season unfolds, and I think Shota's going to be one of those guys who's like, you know what, I'm here now. This is a different league. They pitch by a different set of parameters, and I'm going to just adapt and get after it to the best of my ability. More starts means you can put up better numbers. I mean, that's it. That's how dogs think about it, and I think that's what Shota is. I mean, just seeing him and the kind of the aura right now he has around him at camp with him and Seiya, it's fun to watch.
For sure.
They have been very fun to watch. I think I don't know if you saw it today, Boog's interview with Seiya and his interpreter, and he was like, how does it feel having Shota, and are you excited or whatever, and his interpreter asks him the question in Japanese, and before Seiya even says anything, he just steps back and goes,
nice.
Pure excitement just on his face of having Shota in there. So
I want to know, has anyone taken Shota to Portillo's or Lou Malnati's down there yet? Because I feel like I feel terrible that I asked the question the other day, but somebody needs to. They need to take a field trip. Let them know what it's all about. Let them know what it's all about. Get them a beef and cheddar croissant, sweet and hot peppers. Let's roll. Let them know what it's all about.
And speaking of Shota, because we talked to Justin about it too. Like, how awesome was his entrance to, like, his introduction to the Cubs? I mean, we talked about it on here. Like, we were ready to run through a brick wall for the guy. Like, I don't think you could have a better intro than what Shota had.
No, it was great. I mean, just the fact that it was a Cubs convention and everything, man. He has a flair for the dramatic, and I think that's going to carry over to the season. Like his delivery, I like it a lot. Clearly from a left-hand side, a little hesitation move. He's got a whole bunch of different pitches in his bag of tricks, man, and it's going to be fun to watch this season. And the way he came out, and just hey Chicago, what do you say? He gets it. So it's going to be a fun summer
for sure.
1,000%. And go ahead, Tyler.
I was going to say, just speaking of Cubs convention, last Cub convention, we ran into you. I believe it was the night of Cubs bingo. You stopped and talked to us, which we appreciate that, man. And I just remember you we were talking about hats, because we know you're a big hat guy. So I've got to ask, what is your most favorite Cubs hat that you own, and which hat what's a Cubs hat that you would like to see put back into, like, maybe the Cubs uniform rotation?
The red bill. The red bill.
Yes.
The red bill. My favorite Cubs hat too, I have to say, probably the hat that I wore to every playoff and World Series game, or at least I only went to Game 4, but I wore during every World Series game, and I wore a Transformers shirt. I'm not even a Transformers fan like that. I saw when I first moved to, because it's a Decepticons.
Yeah.
It's an Autobots. It's an Autobots shirt, and some dude looked down at me. He's like scoffed at me. He's like, Autobots. Yeah. I was like, oh, man, hey. It was at Target. It was like $9.99. It fits fantastic. Yeah. So I wore that shirt and it's just the regular Cubs blue hat, but it's like maybe it's the Cubs C that looks like it should have the Cubs whale in it when they were the Whalers, but it's like the red. It's like the round C, and I still have it. It's almost too dirty and stinky to even wear. It's so misshapen now that, I feel like I could probably wear it to work out in, but it's like it's kind of shrunk up over the years now. But yeah, that's probably my favorite hat. Because I wore, that's the year the Cubs won the World Series. I wore it to every game, so that's my Cubs hat.
That's fantastic. A quick follow-up question to that one, and our boy Jake Bunowski, he's a big hat guy himself as well. He says, which hat do you have on right now?
I've got on this. What is this? There's that Fear of God hat.
Yeah. Okay.
The F. I don't. I saw it. I got it on sale because I'm not really in the market of paying what these are regular price. So
that's
because
fair.
I saw
Fear,
one.
Fear God hat.
I don't know.
Fear of God apparel is expensive,
and I that's not my style because I'm more of a TJ Maxx, Marshalls, Ross kind of cat.
Yeah,
myself. But I saw it was at Finish Line and it was on sale, I think, for $30, and I was like, these hats never go on sale. Why did this happen? And it's navy blue, and so I got a navy blue hat. Like, I love my navy blue Cubs hats. You know what? As I say that Cubs hat, I told you I wore the World Series. The Field of Dreams hat, I have 3 of them, and I keep them in rotation because I see that one. Is that the mesh, the snapback you have on there?
This one? No. Yeah. This
I remember. I have that one, but
you were wearing
navy
this hat.
Blue.
You were wearing this hat when you talked to. He was like, "Man, yeah."
You were like,
I think yours was a navier one, but yeah, we were.
Yeah, you had the fitted hat on when we chatted with you about it. Yeah.
I've got way too many. It's ridiculous. I got the golf one, that one. It's
you can never have way too many. Just like Ron, we give Ron a hard time because he is a jersey collector. He can never have too many jerseys. You can never have too many hats. It's
hoodies.
All
I've got too many hoodies as well. So
my hat collection rivals my jersey collection. It's probably actually longer than that. I've been collecting hats for way too long. So I'm right there with you, Cole. I get it. Nice. But you can never go wrong. Speaking of hats, though, what are your thoughts with the new uniforms that Fanatics has released? What is your opinion on everything?
I don't know. Jameson Tyone told me they do feel better. He said,
do they? Okay.
Yeah. So I'm not really that picky, I guess. I'm not like, oh my, it's the way the names are a little smaller, clearly, but if no one would have said anything, I maybe would have noticed probably like 20 games in the season.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I feel like some people are always looking for something to complain about. I try to just control the things that I can control. You know, I mean, if you can look at it like that, you know, I mean, it's like, are they going to change it? Maybe next year. Who knows? I mean, it's not that big of a deal.
I think the funniest backlash of the uniforms that we've seen so far, because I think people have gotten better about feeling just how the jerseys look, but it's more so the fact that the pants are like completely see-through. Yeah. And you can like
I didn't notice that, but I guess now that they're noticing that. But I feel like, you know what, for me, it's like especially if I'm one of those guys, I'm just happy to have my name on the back of a jersey and have a number. Like
100%.
You can put my name and number on the back of a jersey like Vince Papale in the Marquee Mark. What's Invincible. You know what I'm saying? Like with duct tape. You know, I'd be happy if I saw someone running around with that. So I mean, I'm sure the guys really aren't too carried away about it. They're just going to do their jobs.
I feel that. Tyler, I want you to read the last one we have on the lineup, but we did have one that I thought was really good, also from Jake in the comments, Cole, for you. He said, who's a former Cub that you would love to add to the Marquee desk
That
lineup?
is a good question.
Derek Lee.
Yeah, that would be a good
one. D-Lee. We've had him on before, but he's never done shows. So if we get D-Lee, awesome. that'd be dope.
Speaking of him, he's got to be next year's Cubs convention Hall of Famer, right? He's got to be the Hall of Fame announcer, right?
I don't know. They don't tell me until like they're getting ready to be called out. And I even forgot, like when I had the Cats come out, I was like, hey, so did you guys exchange a phone call when you found out? I forgot that they just found out right there, like carrying around. Like what do they call each other on the steps? Like, no, idiot. Like so I almost forgot that's when it actually happened. So I don't find out pretty much right until you guys find out. So they want me to be surprised too. So
gotcha. Well, kind of wrapping things up here. And again, man, we appreciate your time with us. We appreciate you coming on here. Like you've been so generous with your time and stopping and talking to us throughout the years, man. Thank you so much.
Anytime, fellas.
Any spicy fun takes for this upcoming off season? Like, will we see a hint at it in spring training in your eyes?
I don't know if it's spicy, but expect the best from Adbert Alzolay.
Like
It's not but Alzolay. I guess if he's corrected us in saying that now it's Adbert Alzolay, which is tough for me because I've made it a point over the last 4 seasons to make sure I do not say it as it's spelled. A lot of people mispronounce his name. I take pride in my pronunciations.
Yeah.
You know, when I worked at ESPN, they were like, "Do you need phonetics on these hockey?" I'm like, no. I grew up in Chicagoland. This looks like my the yearbook.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
so
100%.
So for me, I take pride in my pronunciations, and it's going to be a work in progress. And maybe I'll call him Albert Alzolay, as we've said the last 4 years. But he's correcting us. We stand as corrected, but expect big things out of Albert Alzolay this season, man. He came into camp looking like a tank. He's ready to roll.
Hell yeah. I love that too. Well, Cole, thanks again for joining us. We're just going to wrap this thing up really quick. As we always tell everybody, follow us, follow our friends over at the Dingers podcast, at Dinger Cubs, at Cubbies on Tap. Follow Cole on socials if you don't already. You are always active on the socials, so you're worth the follow if people aren't, and to interact. You're very interactive, probably more interactive than any other studio host in the game. That's because we get the best in Chicago. That's just what it is.
Thank you, man. That's how we do.
But follow all of our contributors as well here at Cubs on Tap, ontapsportsnet.com, at ontapsportsnet, on the socials, the On Tap Sports Network. Go and check out what's on tap in Chicago sports. Spring training games, first one tomorrow. We're super excited. And Cole, thank you again to you, sir, for your time. And we appreciate you, man.
Hey, anytime, guys.
Awesome. Well, thanks to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's
so
go
much.
Cubbies.
Absolutely.